Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of our Music of the Year 2016 extravaganza. Uh, and I didn't say rhythm encounter, so that. Okay. Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of our Music of the Year 2016 extravaganza on Rhythm Encounter. That is right. It is our third jam-packed episode of awesome music from 2016. And as is tradition on the show, in the third episode, we, your hosts, share our favorite music from the year. I'm Caitlin Argyros, Lynn Cazzaro on the boards, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mike Salbato.
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm sure you know this by now, but I'm Mike on the boards.
Mike, well, it goes without saying, you don't need another name, you're just Mike. I shouldn't even introduce you as Mike Salvato. Everyone's like, hey, it's Mike.
Well, but the other podcast has another Mike.
That's true. And I feel weird calling him Mike, honestly. I call him Solosi just because, I don't know, I'd keep it straight in my head. Anyway, moving on. Also joining us, our resident music extraordinaire, Marcos Gaspar.
Howdy there. Wild Armor on the boards.
Well, thank you, both of you, for joining me. We've had another awesome year of music, and we've had a lot of good music picked by fellow RPG fan staff and longtime friends of the show, and I'm excited for us to talk about some of our favorite music. I think we have a lot of good selections here from both big names and maybe not so big names in the world of RPGs from 2016. So let's start off our first block. I picked a track from a little old game that you might have heard of. It's called Final Fantasy 15. Don't know if it rings a bell, but I picked Melancholia from Final Fantasy 15. And Marcos, you have our next pick.
Yep, I chose A Light Storm from Fire Emblem Fates.
Now, Mike, you have the pick. Go.
You know, before the show, you were making sure that you pronounced this name right. You didn't tell me that I was going to have to do it myself.
Pressure.
Yeah, I
This
know.
This is your test.
I know. I'm not good with accents. So I picked Melodia de la Montaña, or Montana.
Good job.
It might be the song of Montana, the state. I'm not sure. From Chronicles of Time, Chrono Trigger album that came out this year.
Good job. All right, so let's listen to Melancholia from Final Fantasy 15, A Light Storm from Fire Emblem Fates, and Melodia de la Montaña from Chronicles of Time. I had a really hard time picking just one track from Final Fantasy 15. I kept going back and forth between a lot of different pieces because there's a lot of good music in this soundtrack. And there were pieces that I wanted to pick because I thought they did interesting things musically in relation to characters in the story. But I ended up going with Melancholia because I really just could not ignore the beautiful, sad-sounding nature of this piece. It's a very appropriate name for this piece, not just because of the music, but also how it's used in the game, which I won't go into because it involves spoilers. But suffice to say, it happens after a sad thing has happened in the game, and the characters are kind of reeling from it and figuring out what they're going to do. That piano is just so effortless and beautiful. I love how it just kind of flutters down scale. The violin and the oboe playing off of each other are absolutely gorgeous. And then I love the second half of the loop where the piano starts going deeper and the tone gets darker, and the very end is just really dramatic and dark and very unhappy sounding, but I just can't resist the beautiful nature. I tend to find myself drawn a lot to more sad pieces and pieces in a minor key, and maybe that's why I ultimately went with this one, but I just really wanted to feature a good, solid piece of music from this game. Not that that's hard, but this one really kind of stood out to me.
I think it's interesting too because it has kind of this mysterious, well, if you ignore where it's used in the game, almost a mysterious kind of quality, but not a scary one. Like at first when I listened, I thought it was one of a dungeon theme or something because I forgot where it was.
Well, there's a dungeon theme that is predominantly piano, but that one sounds a lot more ominous and scary than this.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting that we both, as many really great battle themes and stuff as there are, we both went with the softer ones in here.
Yeah, I was one of my short list picks was Up for the Challenge, which is the battle theme that plays in the Clegane. I assume it's pronounced Clane. Okay, I want to pronounce it Clegane because of Game of Thrones, but okay. Anyway, the mountainous volcanic region that's on the far western side of the map has, in my humble opinion, the best main battle theme in the game.
Yes.
You can fight me on that if you wish, but I almost picked that, but I figured I'm already picking some really epic sounding battle music, so I'll try to pick something a little bit not as intense. Marcos, what are your thoughts?
I mean, more or less you've hit on the nose, like what I personally thought. Like I like the oboe as well. It's very nice. It's a very soft and just beautiful tone with the music, and it's interesting because when I first heard it, I was like, "Where does this play?" And then when I looked at the track listing, where does this play? And I was like, this is such a beautiful like music, and it's strange how like very dramatic it is, and it's also very odd that it's also a little active for like melancholy music. So I thought, man, it sounds like something tragic happened, but there's still like, you gotta keep going on. You just gotta move. And I'm just wondering, I really want to play this game so badly. And this was an overall great track. And it's a good pick.
That is a very good interpretation from just listening to it as to what happened. Something bad happened, but they do have to keep moving because that is pretty much what happens in the scene where this plays. So good job, Marcos.
I did it good.
Yes.
I forgot to comment, but the other thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if we actually used it in last year's show, but I still think of Melancholia as a Xenoblade X song.
Yes.
And this could not possibly be more different than their version of this song.
I was thinking about that as I was picking it, and I was like, oh, wait a second. Yeah. I don't remember if we used it either. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't, because I do like that theme from Xenoblade X, but this is a very different Melancholia, to say the least.
For sure.
But moving on, Marcos, was your pick called just like dramatic or what did it have another name? I don't remember because it sounds super dramatic.
Well, the name of my track was A Light Storm. This is from the Fire Emblem Fate soundtrack, and I thought this was pretty wicked. But to give a little bit more backstory onto like A Light Storm, it's the theme or the music that plays when you enter battle on a map. Light being the name of the track that's playing while on the map. So you're getting this. You can already get a hint that this is going to be a beautiful track before the battle, but once it enters the battle, it gets incredibly dramatic, and I love everything about it. I don't really have much to go into specifics, but if I had to choose a part of the song that I would like recommend you putting on loop, I would put at 146 because that sucker gets really wicked, and it ended up being one of my favorite tracks on the whole soundtrack, and one of my favorite fights in the game, which this is in Birthright.
Yeah, this is incredibly epic sounding, and it starts off, super epic, and it just keeps going. And it's interesting listening to it because, of course, my media player is showing me the credits, and I see that it's composed by Rei Kondo, who was also involved in the music from Fire Emblem Awakening. And for me, I got my first introduction to his music when I played and listened to Okami. And I can still hear the influences that he brought to that soundtrack here. There's a lot of Japanese instruments that he's using in this track. But yeah, and that was kind of cool because it's like I love Okami, and I really got to like his music from Okami. So great to hear more from him. He does energy really well in like everything that I've heard from him, whether it's Okami or Fire Emblem Awakening or the music from Fates. And I like that it loops once, but it's still a nice long chunk of music even in one loop. It's not just a short and sweet thing. It's got plenty of time to play out and go through different sections of the theme, so that's kind of nice. Even though, I mean, the way the music works in the game is you only hear this when you've actually engaged in combat. It doesn't last very long usually, unless you're like involved in a huge chain of counterattacks and whatnot in one session. So you're not going to hear all of this in one setting, but it's still nice that there's that nice long breath of music to listen to later on, or if you just happen to have a very long battle sequence. So I have not listened to the rest of the soundtrack, and I really need to fix that because this is a really good piece.
Yeah, you do.
Maybe you can help me with that.
Possibly.
You can just send me like, links to listen to this and whet my appetite and just keep, until I finally can no longer deny it, and then I just have to listen to it. So
yes.
I still can't get over the fact that it's 7 discs worth of music, especially for a company that barely releases soundtracks. I mean, they're better about it now, but for a while there, Nintendo didn't do soundtracks at all. Yeah, I like this one. I was trying to figure out a good word. I guess inspiring is a good word, but I wanted something more specific. And the most specific thing I could think of that I put in my notes is a good rousing the troops kind of song that made me think of like a battle in Lord of the Rings or something.
Ooh, like the ultimate battle.
Yeah. Like I was listening to that and thinking of like, oh, spoilers by the way for a 60-year-old book, when Aragorn is like, rousing his like troops and everything. They're going to march on Mordor. I was like, that kind of sound is what I got out of this. But really good song, good pick.
See, it's funny because when I didn't play this game first. I bought the soundtrack, I listened to it, and I thought, man, this must play at like a very dramatic moment in the game. And, like, it even has like this like little pinch of like just some type of romanticism in it. That like they're like fighting on the battlefield. It's like dawn, and they're just like fighting until the sun ends. And then when you finally get to where it plays in the game, it's just like, wow, this is very underwhelming, disgusting. Why would you ruin my hopes? I wish I didn't play this game to find out really where it played. I won't spoil it. You're gonna find out where this plays on your own. With that.
Oh, jeez.
Don't worry, I'm doing you a favor.
Oh. Oh,
lowering your expectations.
so sad. I do want to play this game eventually. I don't know. I have so many other games to play first, and I do hear sad things about this game. So, unfortunately, not that Awakening had like a super amazing story or anything, but some of the stupidity I've heard from not so much the Birthright side, but the Conquest side is kind of like wow. But I'll leave it at that since we don't talk about. We're trying to talk about that kind of. We try to focus on music on this show, so let's talk more about music. Mike, tell us about your pick.
My theme song of the great state of Montana.
They clearly needed a theme song, right? Like, because no one
apparently.
knows what's up in Montana. We were talking about this during the break. What the heck is even in Montana? I mean, sorry, any listeners listening from Montana, I don't know. Please educate us. What is in your great state?
Yeah, this is how we're going to get people to email us about the show. We're going to insult their state. And be like, hey, why don't you interact with us and tell us what you think? What's so great about Montana? I'm sure there's something, but us three don't happen to know what it is.
Oh.
Anywho, Chrono Trigger, when it came out, there was 2 songs on the soundtrack that didn't actually make it into the game. And this is one of them. The original song was Singing Mountain. And I always wonder, because I have like really, really high opinions of the 2 cut songs from the game. And I don't know if it's just because they're good songs or because there's this, air around them about being cut music, like they're more romantic. No, I don't know. I really think it is a great song though. I think this is one of my favorite arrangements of this song so far. There's a lot of good ones out there, but Chronicles of Time has so many great arrangements, and this is one of my favorite ones on there for sure. I don't think I would have ever thought of going this direction with it, this kind of like Latin style of music, and I'm sure Marcos can educate me on the actual instruments here, as you always do. But really interesting take on one of my favorite songs, so I like this one a lot.
Yeah, I want to hear Marcos's take on this. So all I'm going to say real fast is that I loved the violin and the guitar work all around throughout this piece, and I also really liked the way it ended with sort of a background ambience of I guess the sound of wind blowing, singing from up high on a mountain. It's kind of what it reminded me of anyway. So with that said, Marcos, what's your take on this?
Well, I don't know jack about Spanish instruments, but I will tell you, this is a pretty sweet track. And I will say that these rhythms are very infectious. When I hit play on this, I was not expecting this. Guardian Soul, you did a great job. Absolutely love it. And you got Doug Perry and I believe the name is pronounced Matthias S. Garcia Souza. Absolutely stunning work. Love the violin. Love the percussion. And this is just a very it's a nice spicy version of a Chrono Trigger track that I like that. I like that it's not like another rock arrangement or
yes.
While I do love acoustic arrangements of music, I do like it when they add a little mix to it, give it a little bit of what's the word?
Spice.
Give it. I don't want to say spice. I want to say spice. No, you are right. No, no, but it gave it a new breath of life, and I really like that, especially for a track that we never got the chance to hear in the Chrono Trigger game. So I thought that was really cool, and I really like their choice. And whoever allowed Guardian Soul to take care of this one and these musicians, kudos to you. You did a good job.
Well, I'm sure Mike can tell us. I think it's not the entire arrangement album, which is it 5 discs?
It's digital, but it's like 5 discs worth. Yeah.
And they all have it's all like different kind of styles from disc to disc. This is on disc 2, I think, or 3.
This is on 3 track 5.
Okay. It sort of broke it up according to era or style of music, which is kind of a neat thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like the Materia Collective's Final Fantasy 7 and 8 albums. where I think there's some songs on here that show up more than once, but they're by different artists and like different styles. So it's interesting. It's not just like a straight up, you know, these are the 60 tracks from this soundtrack and we just redid each one time. It's just a whole interesting mix of stuff. And I like how I keep adding my thoughts after the fact because I forgot to say it the first time around. But you know what's interesting too about the song is that it's actually kind of a sad song. I have my theories about where it might have been used in the game. I'm not sure if that's the case, but the original song is actually pretty darn sad. So that's the other thing I think is interesting about taking this like upbeat route with it.
That was a very good piece.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, moving along to our second block. Mike, you got to keep talking because you have our first pick.
Oh yeah, well since we're talking about sad introspective songs, I picked Noctis's theme from Final Fantasy 15, which before the show, Caitlin reminded us that it plays way later in the game than you expect it did. Anyway, we'll talk about it later. Caitlin, you have our next pick.
I surprised no one by picking some music from Falcom, I'm sure. I picked Phantasmal Blaze from Trails of Cold Steel 2. And then Marcos, what did you pick?
I chose Galadion's theme from Pokemon Sun and Moon.
All right, awesome. Well, let's listen to Noctis from Final Fantasy 15, Phantasmal Blaze from Trails of Cold Steel 2, and Galadion's theme from Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Caitlin or Marcos, but as far as I know, I don't think they released Noctis's theme before that like Abbey Road presentation. Because there was a lot of trailers with music, and we got familiar with some songs before the game came out, but I don't think anyone heard this song before that presentation.
Yeah, I think I remember them introducing it, saying this is the first reveal of this theme when they did that special concert. Okay. And I remember, I'm sure, just like you, being kind of surprised by how different sounding it was compared to, I think, what we were all expecting to hear from a character theme of the main character of this very dark Final Fantasy.
That's exactly what I was going to say, yeah. Yeah, I love the song. It just, you watch for, a year or 2 years leading up to this game, you're looking at the combat, and it's very, like, action-oriented, and it's, like, fast-paced and exciting. And I didn't expect a really slow, like, kind of reflective piano song to represent the main character. Now, once you play the game, you understand that it fits, but it was definitely a surprising thing. I guess Terra's theme from 6 is similar. Like, it's kind of dramatic. It's not really loud and bombastic.
And it's sad too. Her theme is kind of sad, and there's an air of it's not super sad, and it's definitely not dark the way most of the rest of the music is, but it's not like super happy. It's I think when I was writing my notes, I said something about it sounds a little idyllic at the beginning, like it could almost be playing in a hometown or a safe haven, but then there's some turns of the theme that it's almost like, he's this character who is trying to make the best of things and trying to live his life knowing that he has things he has to do, and it weighs heavily on him is kind of the feel that you kind of get from this track. Like he's trying to be positive. He's like, I mean, gosh, he's only, he's not even 20 years old, I don't think, in this game.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff thrown on him.
Yeah. But it's an interesting character theme in a game where there's only a few actual themes named after characters, and they're all interesting in different ways, but Noctis's is possibly one of the more interesting of the bunch. And also, it's interesting. It doesn't really play predominantly in the main game. Not that I don't think either of us can recall a scene during the main story where it really comes out. I remember it clearly playing at the very end, which is kind of a nice touch, I think, because of the events of the end of the game, which we can't talk about because spoilers, but was maybe a nice musical touch to have his theme there and to have it and play to have it sort of end cap the game. But yeah, it's a nice kind of a wistful, maybe is the word I'm going for, piano and strings piece.
Yeah, I noticed that when I got the soundtrack that there's only a handful of character themes, which is interesting. They're all good. I was actually really, really close to picking Arden as one of the villains of the game. Both of his themes, especially, he has 2 versions on the soundtrack, but the second one is fantastic. But I felt Noctis was the way to go here. But definitely all of those are worth listening to.
Yes, especially. Marcos, what did you think?
This is another one of those tracks where, like, it's like pulling on my heartstrings, going in different directions. Like when at 14, like you get that piano sound come in, and it sounds very hopeful, very happy, kind of like what you're talking about, like a hometown feel. But then at 41, it's really interesting. I feel like it takes a turn into a little bit of I want to say tragedy, but some sort of sadness or some type of cruelty that this character's gone through. But it doesn't stay like that. It continues to go on. Then you get these strings just backing up the piano music, and it sounds, or rather, I would say, the music or the character the music describes remains hopeful. and that's what it sounds like to me. I really enjoyed this track, and I was confused at the location of this track as well. When I saw her, it was track 13 of CD3. I was like, okay, I mean that's a great place to put that. Why? And then like I was like, oh, okay, I think I understand why now.
You can't leave the show, Marcos, because you have such a good job of correctly identifying emotional elements of tracks from games you haven't played.
Oh, I guess something does bad happen to this kid.
I mean, well, the game. I mean, everyone knows the game starts off with his home country being invaded by an evil empire. So yeah.
Really? Oh, that's pretty cool. I know nothing about this game. I should point out I know nothing about this game. I've chosen to remain dark about it, and social media has done the unspeakable of not being on my phone because I refuse to go to social media to spoil this game for myself. Even Tumblr has done a great job not spoiling this game for me, which is impressive because they like to spoil everything as soon as a game, like before even the game comes out. They're like, oh, by the way, this character dies. I was like, thanks, buddy.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I got spoiled by a character death thanks to listening to music on YouTube. Because it was one of like the recommended things in the sidebar. I'm like,
yes, that's why I kept away from YouTube from the soundtrack. That's why I know nothing on the music of this game. Because that happened to me a while ago, and I said never again.
Yeah. Absolutely
never again.
I was hoping that they were trolling me, but it was a legit video, so.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
That's okay.
Yeah, people are bad people. I can't say the word that I want to say because we're a PG-13 podcast, but you all know the word I'm thinking of, and it's true. People are
not
like that.
I mean, to be fair, you can say it and we can it, but you know.
Give us that chocolate.
Yeah, where's the wark, right? That's gonna be our bleep noise as a wark.
Yep.
Anyway, so I guess we'll move on to my pick. What can I say about Phantasmal Blaze? First off, I picked it because it is the second best battle theme in Trails of Cold Steel 2. The first one we already played in a previous Music of the Year before I was on the show, I think. And while I was tempted to just say F it and play it again because of host prerogative, I wanted to try and stay true to our rules, so I went with the second best piece. The first best is, of course, Blue Destination, for those who are wondering. But Phantasmal Blaze is a truly excellent, very close to being best, but not quite second best battle theme. It's actually dungeon theme music as well. It plays during the final dungeon of the main story in Cold Steel 2. There's also a very lengthy epilogue that has its own dungeon that you go through. But this is the final dungeon for the main story that you're working through throughout most of the game. And it also it plays during any regular combat that you have in that dungeon. So it's both dungeon and combat music, which perhaps explains why it is epic as all crap. This is one of the most epic pieces that exists that I've heard in this game, in either game. Way more epic sounding than the final dungeon and combat music from the first Cold Steel, but then almost everything in Cold Steel 2 is kind of more epic than the first Cold Steel. There are a lot of things I love about this track. I love the fast pace that's created by the percussion that just, starts off shortly after the track starts and just keeps going. I love there are a couple of different instances of key shifts happening one after another. There's two different sections where that happens, and that just kind of feels like it's ramping up every time the key shifts. It's just getting more and more serious. There's a little interlude around 2.5 minutes in that has what sounds like marimbas or some sort of other percussion keyboard instrument that's really cool. It works well to sort of break up the different parts of the track. And then one of my favorite things is there's a borrowed riff around 3.5 minutes in that uses music that I actually investigated this because I wanted to know what was going on here. It uses music that was played originally in Trails in the Sky Third, which we don't have yet in English, so I don't know what the context is. I don't know if it's an intentional reference, or it could simply be that it was unused material, an unused riff that got worked into later games, because that has apparently happened before with other Falcom games or other games in this series. But there are a couple of tracks actually in Cold Steel 2, not just this one, that used that same riff, and I thought that was really interesting to have that brought in, even if it was unintentional, just reusing previously or unused material, just to have a little bit of a musical connection between these games, because they are ultimately all part of the same long story that is, at this point now, with Cold Steel 3 being announced and coming out next year, is 8 games long and with no real end in sight. So I thought that was really cool. But I had to pick this. Oh, and the other thing I thought was really cool, I have no explanation for this whatsoever, is that parts of this track really remind me of Ace Combat music. And there are other, and it's not just this one, there are other tracks in both Cold Steel soundtracks that give me an Ace Combat vibe, and I don't know how, because I've checked, and as far as I can tell, none of the composers or arrangers on either of these 2 games, worked on Ace Combat soundtrack, unless I missed something. I went and I looked at all of their credits on VGMDB, and I did not see a single reference to Ace Combat. Maybe I missed something, but as far as I can tell, they haven't. And yet, I get serious Ace Combat vibes from some of the music in these 2 games, and this track in particular. And I'm a huge Ace Combat fan, partly because of the awesome music that all the games in the series have. So I'm like, yes, please put some Ace Combat in my Trails games. I very much appreciate more Ace Combat sounding music. So those are my thoughts. Boys, what are your thoughts?
Maybe someone at Falcom is just an Ace Combat fan.
I would not blame them. It's a good series to be a fan of.
I'm by no means an expert on Ace Combat, but I do know a few tracks from 4 and 5, I think. And I can actually see where you get that from. It's got a similar kind of like energy and feel to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't really know what I can say about the song that you didn't say. Which is why I didn't write down a whole lot, because I knew you would have it covered. Like, literally, my notes say, I'm sure Caitlin has it covered. I can say that the title of this track alone is about as Falcom as song titles get. Phantasmal Blaze just sounds like a Falcom song title.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
It does.
Like a boss theme or something.
A boss theme. That was the other thing I wrote down in my notes. And now I'm out of my notes, so...
I assumed it was a boss theme when I heard it before I started playing the game, and I'm almost kind of glad that it's not, because it's a long dungeon, so that means I get to listen to it more, whereas if it was just a boss theme, it would be like 20 minutes and then no more, so yeah. Marcos, go.
Yeah, what Caitlin said. No, but if I had to add anything into it, when I first heard this, and again, this is another game I don't play. Hashtag, I don't play a lot of games. I just listen to a lot of music, and hashtag. When I first heard this, I thought it was very endgame-ish. I was like, wow, like this chorus is getting up on my face and just like screaming at me. I'm like, oh, I must be at like a boss fight or something over here. Especially when you get that aggressive percussion going on. Like it goes throughout the whole track, except it like falls back at certain moments. Like Caitlin, you mentioned the piano and what you think is a marimba. I thought it was a marimba or a xylophone playing at that same time. It happens around 2:24, and that was really cool when it finally like pulled back and it's like boom 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 boom. What's that xylophone in the back? I was like, whoa, nice. I like that. I like it when they don't try to overpower you too much and they just like, we're gonna show you something else really cool. I didn't pick up on the reference because I have no context for the rest of the music, so that's another great pickup there. So kudos to you. And I think this is a pretty killer track now that I know where it was played. and to have a bit more context, I think this is actually even more cooler now. So thanks for that.
I try to please.
It's just a darn shame that this, like, the soundtrack itself came out in like 2014, but we didn't get the game until 2016.
Yeah.
It was like, come on, like, send that game up to us faster. But
it's gonna happen with Cold Steel 3 because there's no way we're seeing that game until late 2018 at the earliest. So we'll have a good year of listening to the music and be suffering not knowing the context. I'm probably gonna be weak and I will import it because I can't wait that long. So, and it will be good practice for my bad Japanese.
Well, there you go. You got something to look forward to. I mean, me, I'm gonna forget about this. Then all of a sudden, this is gonna hit my lap, and I'm just gonna be super excited, and then realize this game's not coming out for another 10 years. I was like, okay.
Oh, it won't be that long. We'll wait.
I thought about that with Kingdom Hearts 3, and I was like, I joke around with my sister, and granted, this is back at 2000. What was Kingdom Hearts 2? 2006, 2005? It was one of those years that came out.
There, yeah.
I was joking around with my sister, telling that I was gonna have kids before Kingdom Hearts 3 coming out, and this was a long time ago.
Is this you telling us you're pregnant?
No, but I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like this is going to be true. I was just joking around with Square Enix. Don't take me literal. Come out with that game now so I can listen to the music. But now that 15's done, I'm hoping she just goes to that and or Shimomura just composes that. It's like, all right, thank you. No more spin-offs. Give me that game.
I mean, we got 2 games literally within a week of each other this year that were in development for like a decade. So anything's
what was
possible now. Last Guardian.
Yeah.
Whoa, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's like 2 games that people said were never going to come out somehow released within a week of each other, which is bizarre. Man.
I would hate to be the publisher that had to like put a game out when those 2 games came out. It's like, we're not making sales this year, are we?
Yeah, that's when you delay your game.
Delay it after Christmas is the only way to save you.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on to a game that wasn't delayed. I don't know about the development history of Pokemon Sun and Moon, but I don't remember hearing about delays for this game. So, assuming I'm correct, Marcos, tell us about your pick.
Yeah, my pick was the Arrival theme, or Gladian theme. I think that's how you pronounce it. If you play Pokemon Sun and Moon and already beaten the game, then you're already well aware that music for this game is phenomenal, and it sounds nothing like a regular Pokemon soundtrack. When I first heard this, I thought, am I playing am I playing Mega Man X or some type of or spin-off of that? Because this was some of the freshest beats I ever heard. I was like, oh, you got that electric guitar, you got that organ playing, and the battle theme seals the deal when they just add this vicious bass to it, just going throughout the whole time. I was like, man, this is a really exciting stuff, and I just really enjoyed this track. I was just sidetracked when I saw this. I was like, man, or rather sideline. I was like, I can't handle this. I don't know if I can listen to the rest of the soundtrack. But I thought I just wanted to choose this track because to show off again that this soundtrack is very diverse, and it took a lot of turns, and I like each turn. And I'm hoping that the next Pokemon game keeps doing stuff like this, because they're gonna have me hooked up to the music for the rest of my life if they keep doing that.
Well, I basically just wrote that this sounds like a Sega Genesis era Sonic piece of music. Both the quality of the synths. I mean, some of those synths sound like they are literally just taken out of the sound chip from the Genesis, and the way that they're used also really reminded me of I don't know, stuff like music from Sonic 3 or whatnot. That kind of fast moving in the background. So I was just kind of like having a flashback episode to playing Sonic games. So I wanted to ask, because we've already on one of our interludes we've heard music from this game, but this sounds fairly distinct from that. Is this kind of soundscape here unique to this character, or do we hear these kind of synths being used elsewhere in the soundtrack?
Well, I haven't fully listened to like all of it, but I think this like for this his theme uses this a lot more than like any of the other tracks. I don't really hear like this type of mixture in the other tracks. I'm just trying to think because it's difficult to try to retain all that musical memory from or disc release. That's a loaded question. But from off the top of my head, I can't think of any other tracks. But I'm sure if I give it another listen, there might be one or two other tracks. But it's not going to be something that spans like a lot of tracks in the same album.
I think I said probably something similar on our last interlude, so I'll try not to repeat myself too much. But Nintendo gets a lot of flack, depending on who you ask, but for a lot of their games about being kind of rehashes. And especially Pokemon, there's so many of them. I think sometimes games come out and people think it's like, well, it's a minor evolution from the last one. So I like that they're willing to like do more this time with the game and the music, like go a little outside of their comfort zone, I guess. So it was a nice surprise, this style of music.
Yeah, I was taken by surprise. Pleasant surprise, but yeah. All right, well, then let's move on to our third and final block, in which, Marcos, you have the first pick.
Yes, I have Your Love is a Drug from Valhalla.
I get that a lot.
You what a lot?
Sorry.
Oh.
No, I said I get that a lot.
But Tish.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, what's your pick?
My pick is one of the more creatively named songs from Atelier Ferris, which is The Sound of Leaves Rubbing My Back. Just go with it.
There are so many questions with that
so
title.
Many.
Yeah. Okay, and then I have the final pick of the block, and surprising no one, I picked something from Final Fantasy 14. Specifically, this is Oblivion, the Never Let It Go version, which is from the recently released band and piano arrangement album, Duality. So let's listen to Your Love is a Drug from Valhalla, The Sound of Leaves Rubbing My Back from Atelier Ferris, and Oblivion, Never Let It Go version from Final Fantasy XIV, Duality.
my eyes for one last time and say goodbye. Lying naked while the snow falls all around me, drifting closer to the edge, but she won't have me. Wake up in sweat, full of regret, trying to forget these memories lurking beneath, lost in a dream. Unchosen path, a broken past, forspoken wrath. The pain won't cease, I'll find no peace, no sweet release. Fragile creatures, we are taught to feed the reaper. Ever running, we are dead before we meet her. These voices telling me let it go. I try and try, but I can't say no. Try and say no. This endless nightmare has just begun. Nowhere to run. My heart is dragging me down into the endless lies I've cast aside, lock them in ice. Still taste my soul, my blood grown cold, I've gained control. Fearless creatures, we have learned to fight the reaper. Can't defeat her, so instead I'll have to be her. These voices screaming and let it go. Never let go. This time I'm screaming, but no. Can't say no. My mind is made up, my fear is gone. Where have you gone? Open my eyes now, here I come. Last time, I won't say goodbye. For the last time, I won't say goodbye. For the last time, I won't say goodbye. For the last time.
And welcome back from that delicious listening block. And to talk about my pick, Your Love is a Drug from the Valhalla original soundtrack second round, I have quite a bit of things to say about that. First thing, very chill, very bright, and very rocking. Now, I've been waiting for this stupid thing to come out for so long. If you've been with us since RPG Fans Music of the Year 2014, that was one of my most anticipated for 2015. That did not happen. thankfully, it came out this year, so now I can finally drool over this whole soundtrack. And there's quite a bit to go to it. There's 44 tracks, and this is one of my favorite ones. And I gotta say, love it. I think the thing what I like most about it is that I get this 80s anime music vibe the whole time. Like, just as my childhood, just watching these animes and just really cheesy music playing in the background, or more or less just that 80s theme. And I just thought it was a really nice pick to choose. I personally don't have much to say about the music itself, other than I just like that it's not like totally in your face, but something really relaxing and chill. The name is interesting. Your love is a drug. So I thought that was nice that it wasn't like something ridiculous. But what about you two? What do you have to say about this?
My notes start off by saying 80s, here we come. Because, yeah, that was my first, from the very beginning of the track, I'm like, whoa, this sounds like this would be like maybe in an old 80s film. Even the title kind of reminds me of like 80s music, Your Love is a Drug. But it's quite catchy. I love the, I guess, the introduction of the piece before the main melody comes in. The ba bum ba da ba ba da ba. I love that. It's really catchy. I started humming along to it really fast. So it's a nice, fun piece you picked.
Listening to Marcos talk about this music, I think Marcos's voice is the musical equivalent to this soundtrack. I kind of get the same feeling from both, because it's kind of like relaxing and loungy. I think it's relaxing, and then it still kind of has like this energizing feel to it. I actually have both soundtracks, this one and the first one, and then is it Garode, the composer?
I think it's pronounced Garode.
Okay,
I'm not too sure.
In 2015, between the two soundtracks, he also released like a little EP with some other music that is kind of the same style. But I have a playlist with all of these on here, and I actually listen to it a lot when I'm working, or it's really good music to like work to, because it's relaxing, but at the same time it kind of like keeps you motivated. Just great stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Well, speaking of relaxing, Mike, tell us about what sound do leaves rubbing your back make?
Well, as we keep saying, this is a PG-13 podcast. I don't understand the track titles of a lot of the songs on here. When we were off air, we were kind of looking through some of the song titles on Atelier Ferris, and they could maybe be misinterpreted. I'm not sure what the sound of leaves rubbing my back is supposed to mean exactly. I guess you're like laying down in a field looking up at the sky. Because why not? What else could it be, right? This is actually one of my favorite songs on the soundtrack, though, because on our last interlude, I used another song, and this was like very, very close second choice for me. I was going to comment on the apparent pan flute, because pan flute is the go-to for a lot of gust music, but then Marcos, of course, pointed out that it's actually a kina. Is it kina?
I don't know how you pronounce it, sucker. YouTube and Wikipedia has me saying two different words. I thought it was Kena, then someone on YouTube said Kina. I don't know anymore.
I'm going to go with Kina, with a Q.
But not quinoa.
Not quinoa, because that'll start a whole nother discussion. But it did make me think of quinoa. I learned so much about music and instruments, like from these soundtracks and from having Marcos on the show. There's always some other instrument I've never heard of, and here's another one.
Yeah, I thought they were recorders. I wrote down that they're recorders. They
Right.
sound like recorders to me.
Yep.
And that takes me back. Holy crap.
Yeah, don't feel bad. I wrote recorders as well, and I thought, no way. This can't be recorders. They sound a little too mellow to be recorders. And then I went to go check the video game music database page, and then I found Kena, spelled Kena. I was like, I have no idea what this is. And then I saw Kena, Quena, and I still said, I have no idea what this is. But when I finally took a look, I was like, wow, these actually sound really nice. When I finally took a listen on YouTube, I was like, this definitely has to be the instrument. And it sounds absolutely beautiful. Oh, gosh. But what'd you think of the track, Caitlin?
I like it. It's a nice, simple, peaceful tune. The kina and the single guitar and the chimes that kind of gives a little bit of a mystical feel to it. Like, I don't know, maybe this is you're in a forest somewhere where there are a lot of trees, I guess. But it's really pretty sounding. I don't know that I've heard a piece from Gus on the podcast that I had not liked. So, and I've got Atelier games sitting on my Vita just waiting for me to play them. So one of these days I'm going to work my way through the various trilogies and get caught up with now Fierce, so I can actually maybe talk more about this music.
And this is the daytime version too.
There's a nighttime piece?
A lot of the, I guess they're field themes, but there's a lot of stuff on the soundtrack that's day and night. And the nighttime one is the same melody, but like even more mellow and chill.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's a good thing you didn't pick that. We don't want to put people to sleep.
No. We want to lead them into this really loud and obnoxious next track.
And you would think it's loud and obnoxious because we've played the original version of Oblivion during Music of the Year 2014 as one of a picks. I don't remember whose it was, but gosh, it may even have been mine. I don't remember. Anyway, we played the rock version, and it's a very rock,
J-rock.
battle theme. Yeah, J-rock. And so it's one of my favorite primal themes, not just because it's a rockin' song, but because of the lyrics. I love the primal themes where they've got these really beautiful female sung lyrics that tell a story of the primal Shiva, and then also more recently Sophia's theme also has beautiful lyrics that sort of tell a story. And Shiva's lyrics are really dark and fit the character, both the historical character that you learn about in Heavensward, but then also the present Shiva that you're dealing with in the game, the one that you're actually fighting. Really pretty. This acoustic arrangement took me completely by surprise. This is, I guess, the bonus track on the most recent rock piano duo arrangement album that they have been releasing for Final Fantasy XIV called Duality. And I wasn't expecting it on an album where it's either piano or it's really rocking the primals doing arrangements of music from the game. So this was kind of interesting to have this quiet, soft acoustic version, but it immediately, like literally the first time I heard it, it became my favorite piece on the album. And I think I hadn't even listened to the rest of the album. I think I started with the rock pieces and then listened to this and then the piano pieces. But as soon as I heard it, it's like, okay, that's it. There cannot be anything better than this. It's just, and then the rest of the music is good too. I actually liked the music on Duality more than the previous band piano album from Astral to Umbral, in large part because I just really love the music from Heavensward. So the source material is really close to my heart, even more so than the awesome music from A Realm Reborn and its patches. But it's a quieter but no less beautiful version of the song. Actually, in some respects, I'd say it's more beautiful having the guitar, the piano. It sounds like there's a cello, I want to say, playing in there because it's really deep and low. There's even a bit of a Celtic influence at different places. It's almost like Mitsuda could have composed this, which I wouldn't be opposed to Mitsuda doing an arrangement of some of this music, a la like the Rogue Galaxy arranged album. That would be really cool. But yeah, I know I pick a lot of music from 14. We in general on the show pick a lot of music from 14, not just me, but I couldn't help it. This made it on my list of music of the year. I actually specifically made an entry that's just best piece on an arrangement album for this track because I just had to talk about how awesome it is and couldn't resist putting it on the show for you guys to hear.
And I'm glad you did. Okay, are you sitting down? Because this is probably the first not completely positive thing I'm going to say about 14.
Oh boy. Okay, yeah.
Not about this song. I adore this song. I'm not sure how I feel about this whole album. Because I think early on, when Titan's theme was like this, like just in your face rock song, there was kind of a novelty to it because it was different from all the other ones. But they're doing more and more and more of this like rock music in primals and stuff. And I like the Duality album, although getting a new rock version of a song that already was a rock song is a little bit weird to me.
Yeah.
Because Shiva's theme was even on the first album like this, and it was kind of weird because it was a rock version of a song that was already a rock song.
Yeah.
So it's not bad. I like it. I like that they're new recordings. They're interesting. But I think what's really interesting about this track is that it's very different from the original. It's not just like the last time. It's like, okay, it was this style and we're just doing it again in the same style. Which is probably why I like the piano stuff on this album more, because it's a really different take on some of those songs. And that's what's great about this one too. It's a really different take from what we're used to hearing of this song. And like you said, it totally fits her character because it's a pretty kind of depressing song, actually. And I liked the rock version of it, but it really, really hits home as an acoustic track. So definitely my favorite thing on the album too.
Marcos, what are your thoughts?
I don't know anything about Final Fantasy 14.
Oh, I don't either.
But this track, it's actually pretty cool. I think what I like about this is it just sounds very resigning. And very dramatic as well. It took me a while to like hear the lyrics, and then I eventually just said, well, I'm just gonna go to YouTube. YouTube will always help me. And I found the lyrics, and I thought, wow, this is very sad. And finally, like reading the lyrics and like re-listening to the music again, I thought, I was like, wow, that was very sad and very pretty. But other than that, very dramatic.
Well, that covers it.
I think we said all there is to say about that. So, and that was our final pick of the block. So that means that our Music of the Year extravaganza is at an end. I want to thank everyone for listening to yet again our 3-episode mega Music of the Year podcast. We had some great picks from, like I said, staff members, friends of the show. I want to give a big thanks again to our staff members, Peter and Robert, who joined us on our first episode, to longtime friends of the show, Michael Matt Cunningham and Don Katowski, who joined us on our second episode. Big thanks to some of our most passionate listeners who sent in some picks to include on our episodes. And of course, thank you, Mike and Marcos, for joining me for our finale. As usual, please rate, review us, like us on iTunes, subscribe, tell your friends, chat with us on Twitter, on the board, send us emails at music@rpgfan.com. What did you like? What would you like to hear? What did you really like about 2016? If you weren't able to send in any picks, we just love to talk about awesome music, and we've got an awesome year of 2017 now of coming up, which is going to probably be nothing but Persona. I'll try to resist the urge, but we all know it's going to be fairly Persona heavy. But that's for another podcast. So as usual, again, thank you all for listening, for helping make the show the awesomeness that it is. I feel like I kind of want to, it's the end of the year, so I want to just give a little extra special thanks to everyone who listens and who has participated in the show over the course of the year, and my buddies that are with me today. It's always a great experience to work on this show, and I look forward to many more episodes and more music of the year to come. But for myself, for Mike, and for Marcos, I think that will do it for this episode and for our Music of the Year extravaganza. As is tradition, we always have a surprise track at the end of the episode, and I did the honors for this episode. No one really talked about this game in our Music of the Year because it only came out in Japan, and we don't get it until 2017, and the soundtrack itself hasn't actually been officially released yet. But we did get a preview album for none other than Persona 5 that came out with, they released a mega album, Mega Persona series album that included music from the entire series, and it included a disc entirely of selections from Persona 5. So we got a little bit of a preview of music from that game, and you'll be hearing a lot more of that music once we get the actual soundtrack in a few weeks. But to take us out for this episode, we're going to be listening to Willpower, which is one of the really awesome boss themes from Persona 5. So let's listen to that. Have a great 2017, everyone, and keep on listening to awesome RPG music. We've had a lot of Final Fantasy on this episode, though. It'd be cool if we could do something not from Final Fantasy.
Yeah. What about World of Final Fantasy? No.
It's as Final Fantasy as it gets.